Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 2 of the Same Bet Show. Today, we're talking about tips and tricks to get you ready for a Las Vegas trip. All right, so you're headed to Las Vegas, maybe Atlantic City, Tunica, Blackhawk, Colorado, a destination. You're going for vacation to a casino, and you want to be prepared. You want to make the most out of your vacation that you possibly can. So what are some of the tips and tricks that you can do to prepare for this vacation? Well, that's the question that I posed to Facebook earlier this week, and we got some great answers. Let's take a quick look at some of those now. First up, we've got Jim. And Jim, what he does is he usually puts the ice bucket on the bed with a towel in it. He tosses the dice into the bucket, working on his mechanics, getting them to fly together and hitting the target. And once he's done that a few times and it's looking good, heads down to the table, plays a bit, colors up, and changes casinos. You know, that's some great advice for while you're actually there. But what I'm looking for is, how do you prepare maybe a week, 2 weeks? How do you prepare in advance? Don't discount what he just said. It's great for muscle memory and keeping your arm ready to play. But what do you do to prepare ahead of time? Okay, let's take a look at the next person. We've got Anthony W. out there. Now, Anthony's more of a serious player. He says, as I'm not flying to Vegas to play for 15 minutes, hit 3 numbers and walk away, I need to build as much discipline as possible beforehand. I will watch videos, films, and read the latest on Vegas so that I can feel the excitement of the coming trip. All right, so Anthony is really into getting ready mentally. He not only does he practice, but he is trying to get into the mood, I guess is maybe the way to do it. He wants to be excited about his plan. He goes to play, not to just throw a few numbers and walk away. Anthony, that's his advice. All right, the next one coming up is Orvi. All right, so Orvi, he talks about intensifying his regular practice sessions and all aspects of the game and toss. But at some point, maybe a week before, he's going to dial it back a little depending on how things are looking. Now, that's actually going to be one of the common themes that I see. So several of the people that you're going to hear about, they intensify their practice maybe 2 weeks before. But as they get a little bit closer, they dial it back. They're in the groove. They don't want to overthink it, maybe. They know what they need to do. They've got their arm trained, and they're ready to go. So dial back just a little bit, and that's how Orvi prepares. We're going to see a couple of others kind of say the same thing. All right, next up, we're going to talk to Hardway Jack. Now, Jack, he makes a list of everything he needs, practices a little bit more at home than he normally would, makes sure his transportation is all scheduled and proper, and that he didn't forget anything. If he did, Amazon Prime will be his backup. And he goes on to tell the story about how he did have to actually use Amazon Prime to bring in some clothes and stuff. So that's a great read there, Jack. Hopefully everybody is following it on Facebook and come out there and read that. But yeah, having a backup plan for your essentials. You can make a run down to the local mall or Target or Walmart or whatever you need. You can do that, with a quick Uber ride, or you can use Amazon and have it delivered to you the next day. Might be a little fee for that, but hey, cheaper than renting a car or an Uber sometimes. So don't forget, Amazon might save your behind a little bit. Okay, who's up next? Marlena P. Okay, so Marlena, she's you might know her from the Hawaiian crapshooter crew. She practices her throw at home, very specific number of tosses, 108 tosses daily until she takes off. She'll track her SRR, her 7 to rolls ratio, with those throws, and between all that, keep my mind happy and energy levels up by going to the beach. Mar, she lives in Hawaii, so going to the beach is a little bit easier for her than some of us that live in the middle of the United States. I can't quite do that. So we're kind of going back into that mental conditioning. How do you get ready? And it kind of reminds me of an old boss of mine. He had a saying that you have to get rid of the crap in the trap sometimes. And that, to me, you've got to be mentally prepared for your game. Mar, she relaxes. Actually, I don't know. Man, she intensifies things with 108 tosses, tracks her SRR, but then she calms down. She relaxes just a little bit before she actually goes with a trip to the beach. Next up, Mr. F. So rest being the first thing. The next is practice, whether that be a strategy-wise, a landing zone, or a set as a whole. So, he's kind of talking about the same thing. You don't want to be wound up. You're getting ready to go on a vacation, and that's easy to do. You want to be excited and you want to be in the moment. But to be at the top of your game, you should be relaxed. And that's what Mar and Mr. F were just talking about. Stay calm. Okay? Next up, we've got Dan S. Now, Dan, he's talking a little bit about his preparing for flights and cars and things like that. But when he's talking specifically about gaming, he's going to set win limits and loss limits and how his strategy will be affected based on what the dice are showing him. I don't like to play on my first day unless I have a chance to rest and relax first, and then set up my bankroll, loss limits, and a flowing strategy. Having fun and being in the moment is a goal of mine. It's a good goal of mine. Okay, yeah, so he's talking about some of the great common things that we've also talked about. So we've heard be rested, be calm, and he's kind of saying that same thing. I don't play on my first day unless I have a chance to rest and relax first. That's also another common theme that I've heard before is don't play on your first day. You've done a lot of traveling. You're in a new environment. Relax, calm down, and then hit the tables. Okay, next up, we've got my friend Ed. Ed, he tries to have a complete book of tosses logged in Bone Tracker about 4 days out from the trip, so it's not very far out. He's going to toss, I think that's around 720 rolls, if I remember what a full book is. But he analyzes what he's seeing, and he starts to look for 3 or 4 die sets that are going to be useful on the tables. Bone Tracker is a great tool for helping you to do that. And then after he's got those 4 sets, he gradually gets rid of some of them until he has the one that's going to get him the results he expects. As he gets a little bit closer, he tosses a little bit less. And the last night, he only tosses enough to get familiar with both sizes of the dice and to feel good about what sets to deliver. So Ed is talking about doing his homework. So about a week or so, 4 or 5 days out, he's going to toss, and he's going to toss a lot, approximately 750 or 720 rolls, and use Bone Tracker to analyze what's it telling you. What are the sets that are providing or giving you the best results at the time? Come up with maybe 4 of those sets, keep your practicing going, and then whittle it down to maybe 2 or 3, whatever works for you. Get that rest in, and you're prepared. You're ready to go. All right. Thank you, Ed. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. Next up is John C. So John, I love John's response. I practice throwing, obviously, but I also focus on tuning 3 strategies for the trip. One for hot, one for cold, and one for choppy conditions so that you can be confidently switch on the fly. I love that. And then he goes on to say he decides in advance how many sessions he's going to play, splits the bankroll into that number, and then works the strategies from there. He also practices at the $25 level, and because that's the most likely the table at minimums right now. Love that advice from John. Let's go back to that. So I focus on tuning 3 strategies for the trip, a hot, a cold, and a choppy, and he practices those. We talk about muscle memory a lot of times for dice setters. You want to set your dice as fast as you can. You want to hit the same landing zone with the same velocity, and so on and so forth. But there's something to be said for having the strategies in your mind and you know how you're going to react to the table conditions. Maybe you're going to do a different strategy. Maybe you're going to move to a different table, or maybe you're going to move to a different position in the table. But having an idea of which strategy you're going to play based on what the table conditions are, and having that just where you don't even have to think about it, you know what it's going to be. That's actually pretty powerful. John, thank you for that advice, man. I really appreciate that one. Okay, next up, we got Polly P from the 503. Now, Polly talks a little bit about maybe a more formal goal. Start by writing your profit goals per session based on your bankroll. So trying to dissect what he's saying right there is you want to do a couple of things. actually physically write it down. We hear that all the time about goals. Until you write it down, it's not really ingrained in your brain. So writing it down can be a powerful tool. Next, he goes on to say, per session based on your bankroll. So be smart about what you're doing with your money. So if you're taking, let's say you're taking $5,000 and you got on a 5-day trip, you got $1,000 bankroll and you play 2 sessions. Well, okay, you got $500 per session that you have to spend. So how much money do you realistically want to make off of that session bankroll? Write it down. And write it down, you'll remember it, and you're more apt to stick to it. And then I'm going to go a little bit further. Then formulate your betting strategies based on your bankroll. If you have a practice table, play exactly the way you would at the casino. Lay out the dice on the table per roll so you can see what numbers you're throwing. Practice your grip toss, landing zone, and practice as much as you can. Yeah, so Paulie's talking about, we heard a couple of them say they use Bone Tracker to track the results. What Paulie is talking about is take a lot of canceled dice, throw them and throw them and throw them and throw them, and then you can see patterns start to emerge. So what is your dominant number? What are you seeing, and how can you parlay that into a betting strategy? That's kind of advanced level play. And Paulie, thank you for that advice, man. I really appreciate it. Okay, next up is Heavy. All right, so here we got Steve from Access Power Craps. We've got Heavy, his advice. As far as the pre-trip ramp-up toss routine is concerned, about 3 weeks out, he'll double up on the number of tosses he shoots for the day. Although it's an imprecise number, as he tends to toss complete hands and not a specific number of throws. So he's ramping things up. He's throwing more than he normally would, and he does complete rolls. He doesn't do something like 180 rolls or 720 rolls. He plays it out. But the last week before he's traveling, he dials back also. So we've seen this several times. In those last few days, you kind of go, those last few days before your trip, you relax a little bit. You've got it. You've been putting in the practice. You don't want to overdo it. So you just relax just a little. Keep tossing. Keep warm. You're warmed up, but don't overdo it. Let's see here. What else does he say? The last week before traveling, dials it back, basically tossing just a couple of hands a day rather than overtraining before hitting the casinos. All right, great advice there, Heavy Man. We really appreciate all of the feedback that you give us in your forums. All right, a couple more. Let's take a look. Oh, actually, I've only got one more. Chris, this is one of my favorites. It's so simple. We go there in hopes to win money, but be sure to make the most of it all. So, maybe that's not preparing for your trip, but while you're there, don't forget to take advantage of, all of the opportunities around you. You've got, world-class foods and restaurants to go see. And you've got all of the sites. You've got shows. There's just no shortage of things that you can do other than just playing crap. So there you have it. So common tips and tricks from the Facebook forums on how to prepare for Las Vegas. So I'm going to be taking some of those into consideration as I prepare to leave for my own Vegas trip and see how well we do. All right, so next week we're going to be live in Las Vegas. I don't know if I'll be able to actually do a show on Monday night, but I'm going to try to do live from somewhere at some point while I'm in Las Vegas. I hope to see you again next week. Thank you.